What is going on, peeps? Welcome to the next edition of Throwback Stories. Stories from the Hood edition. Now, you guys, after the last few stories, I know you're probably wondering, okay, which story came first? And you stopped talking to that Kevin guy, right? You know what? I was too nice of a person. I'd give people a lot of chances. And my problem was people like Kevin are the type of people who literally paid for everything. Literally, until I get to the end, and yeah, we hung out for years after both of those stories. This story actually happened after all the previous ones I had told. Uh, he's one of those dudes who paid for everything for everyone, like legitimate. He was like a sidekick, a lackey. I was cool. I was awesome. I had personality. He wanted to be around me. He knew I was the type of person that attracted a lot of women. And I was the type of person that people would like to be around like that. Because then they could act like they're as cool as me just because they're around me. And to be perfectly honest, as I told you guys, these were my like kind of hustle days. You have someone who's literally paying for everything for you. From your bus fare, your food, your cigarettes, they don't smoke cigarettes, your weed, and they don't smoke weed, your pre-juice, when they don't even pre-juice all the time, your drinks at the club, when they're just going to be milking one drink all night, they got you covered the whole time, or they're grabbing a bottle or whatever. You're going to keep hanging out with them. Especially when they do fucked up shit, and then they have to make up for it. That's kind of what kept me around toxic, messed up people for a long time. So, yes, there will be a lot of more stories, including Kevin. Sorry, guys. I know you probably don't want to hear about this guy. You guys probably hate him. But I will continue. So this story was probably the worst New Year's Eve of my life. Now, you know that girl had a best friend. We'll call her that girl's best friend, but all respects to her, no disrespect to her. She was a very awesome person. She didn't live in Toronto. She actually lived in another province, and she would visit that girl because they're best friends every summer and whatnot. And there was a whole back and forth and the whole spin kick thing. So this is literally, so that slapping incident happened in the summer, start of the summer. Okay, this is like a year later. So after I messed up with both those girls, after the slapping incident, and after all the other things. So this is like the next year coming up, winter time, Christmas time. I am 20 years old at this time. At this point, I can confirm to you guys, I am no longer a virgin in the story. So we got past all the virgin stories. Although there's a few more I might tell, but yeah, this is when I'm a man, when I'm 20, and I finally lost it. But yeah, so at this point, I worked at a dental company. It's no longer around, called As Tempo. It was in Vaughan. So all of these people, that's why I refer to it as the pool hall era, most of the hood stories, they all were around each other regularly every day. It was a whole thing. At this time, that girl and her best friend just came to visit her at this point. And she was there longer because she was usually just there for the summer than usual this time. And there was a lot of things going on with us all talking. And after everything that happened, as I told you guys, she was there with the whole thing. This is like literally the winter after that summer where I lost both of those girls. So technically, I did get them both back a few months later. And then we get to this point where it is what it is. Now, they're all in that life. My job is actually all the way in Concord. We're all in Scarborough. So I'm not in Scarborough a lot. And I'm meeting a lot of new people. This is a huge company. One of literally the biggest dental company in the world, in Canada at the time. So I am meeting new people, having new circles of friends. And on top of that, I always had other circles of friends that I was a part of outside of them. So I would have my own excursions. I'd go on random solo missions or adventures or whatever you want to call it. But I was not really part of what was going on in the pool hall. At this point, the pool hall was long closed. Plaza was still there. Right now, the plaza's all houses. Maybe one day I'll take you guys to the actual pool hall and talk about some stories while there, walk around. Maybe I'll get Lady V to join me. It'll be like some kind of, I don't know. Maybe it'll be therapeutic to be talking to them and telling some stories while actually in the place that they happened. But New Year's is coming up, and that girl was at this time very much interested in me. After the whole things that happened in the past, it was kind of a thing with me and that girl where we would come back to each other, and then things would get messed up, and then go to other people, then come back to each other for a few years. And then like when I was 26, 27, maybe 26 actually. But we're talking on and off, but we were just in different places, and I was around a different type of people at this time. Now, I was hanging out in the hood when I did not have my arm and all that stuff, but this is when the miracle happened after where my arm magically healed years before it should have. And I healed way beyond what they told me I would have been able to heal off that. So I'm back to working general labor. And, technically I'm a blerd. Yes, I grew up in the hood, but I like anime, I like wrestling, I like video games, I like comic books. That's my jam. Literally up until 2 or 3 years before my hood days, I was still buying action figures. I shit you not. Maybe 1 or 2 years. It was like right through high school, I was still buying action figures. Taking my lunch money and either buying wrestling magazines or action figures. My mom kept throwing them away, saying, "You're a man now." I was like, "I'm still a teenager." No, you have no idea. It kind of pisses me off because so much money now. Why couldn't you let me keep them? Oh my God, we would literally be rich if I even had some of them broken. But yeah, I was moving on and being around the type of people who I should have been around. I got to that point where I started chilling in that hood life because the incident that happened with my arm, and I had that surgery, and I kind of became depressed. The whole thing that led to that hood life really was my entire thing throughout high school is that I was going to be a professional wrestler. I was going to take something in college, so I had something to fall back on, and all I wanted to do was be a professional wrestler. Then that thing happened to my arm just before I graduated, before I finished high school. I honestly even finished high school. Oh no, it was just before I did, just after I did that. I should have been going to college, but just like when it happened, the doctor saw my arm, he told me, "You'll never use the right arm again." And like, all I ever wanted to do was be a professional wrestler. And I'm being told the one thing I've ever wanted and I ever wanted to do is not possible. It was one of the hardest pills I've ever had to swallow in my life. Honestly, that moment broke me. I still haven't recovered from that because, to be perfectly honest, I'm at a point where I realize I should have pursued it when I started healing. But maybe it wouldn't have been the best because I wasn't fully healed, and general labor was probably the best thing because I didn't have to push myself hard. But the reason why I went into that hood life because I couldn't be a wrestler anymore, and I gave up on life. But then, you live that life, you see what that life is, it kind of makes you like, a 9 to 5 ain't that bad. So as soon as I got a full-time 9 to 5, I left that life behind, officially. And this is kind of at that point where I'm leaving that life, but still kind of attached to all these people within it. So with that being said, things between me and that girl, just like, she wasn't really where I was. I was thinking more of a family. I was telling her, because I'm working in the dental industry. He's like, "Yo, you should try to work in a dental office. You have that personality, blah, blah, blah." But just never got there. And we just weren't working out. But at the same time, Kevin was working her best friend, and he was planning this whole big hotel party, which apparently became a motel party, despite him giving them enough money to get a hotel. Now, this was a whole thing because I was like kind of in and out. I was kind of speaking to women within my new life and then floating back into that life when those things didn't work out. So I would keep coming back to that girl. So I'm not completely innocent in this story in that sense. And I was still talking to Lita at the same time. So just a matter of this whole thing was supposed to go down, and then I got pulled into it through Kevin saying I'm part of this, and he started telling them. Then I was telling him no, I'm not, because he did not tell me his whole plans that he was paying for this. Because they started telling me, oh yeah, we're doing a hotel party, you're coming? And I was just like, and they're like, said something about dropping. I was like, I ain't spending money on a fucking hotel for New Year's. Are you mad? Because New Year's has always been something I did with my family. And this would be actually the first time that I'd be spending a New Year's away from my family. Well, let's just say I ended up spending New Year's with my family at the end of the night. So Kevin is kind of a weirdo, and he started doing a lot of messed up things. Now, he had worked for a cleaning company that cleaned Shoppers Drug Mart, and everyone wore leather gloves when they worked in the scenes. So he kind of started doing that too. I would work with this company later myself. But he would wear those gloves all the time. Turned out he had a very ashy skin, so, kind of was pretty trying to cover it up. And for some reason, he didn't believe in using lotion. I just still don't understand that to this day. But he'd be wearing these leather gloves, and the few times I would show up there, he'd be doing this weird ass shit, like he's trying to seem like a serial killer. And then he would be like, kept saying all this stuff how he's making them think he's a killer so that they'll be like unsure at the party. Then he'll just be his normal. I was like, dude, that's not smart. Like, I was a dumbass back then too, but I was like, bro, that's not gonna work. And I was 50-50 on going, but he told me he was covering everything. He was legit gonna pay for everything. So I was just like, okay, if I don't gotta pay, you're gonna get a hotel, you're gonna get a bunch of booze, a bunch of weed. All right, I'm in. Now, on the night of this happening, this is a whole build-up. I don't know all the things leading up, and to be perfectly honest, the nights leading up to it, I had nothing going on for New Year's, so I kind of was just like, okay, you know what, I'll just kind of fake it with that girl. Well, there was a kind of a part of me who was kind of intrigued of what was going to happen that night, and at this time, it was just kind of, I don't know. I was more open to it, if you will, with that girl than I had been in the past with her. So, on the night of this, Kevin, the night before, gives me $80 to buy weed. And I'm just like, bro, we need at least a half of it. And I was just like, okay, blah, blah, blah. You know what? I'll put the rest. You're paying for everything. So I was essentially putting in like $40. A half ounce back then was $120. And I tried to get weed. I went to a few connections. I went to my VP station, tried to link one of my boys. I ended up going to this little diner and having one of the best burgers I ever had. And I had a moment that I realized I was a complete and total dumbass. There was this really hot girl walking in front of me and staring at me the whole subway ride when I was hitting the Kennedy station to meet them. And then upon walking out, it was just like, she held the door for me, but then for some reason I just walked away. And she like turned and made eye contact, and I was just like, to this day, I was like, what would have happened if I just said what's up or said something to that girl, but I didn't. And this girl was gorgeous. Just, oh my God. Totally my type. Short, Asian girl with glasses, some physique. It was just like, I had a hot little booty on her. And I was just like, why? And I don't know why. but I wussed out. And it was so cringe what I did because I walked around and went to another door. After standing right there, making eye contact for 5 seconds, and then I just say, I'm a dumbass. Young me was a dumbass. I may have already lost my virginity at this time, but he was still a total idiot with women. Apparently, I'm still am kind of. How so hard to read sometimes. You guys know what I mean. So, after that messed up moment, which I've never told anyone actually, telling this is just the first time I mentioned that happened that night. So I go to meet them and I was like, okay, I'll just ask them. I know these girls have links on weed. So I go and ask them to grab me weed. Now, one of their friends who wasn't supposed to be there, but she's like someone who is actually quite genuine. Actually still on my friends list till this day because she is actually a really good person and she wasn't fully down with what they're doing. And she was legit like telling me what they were doing. Because I came there thinking that these girls are coming with me and Kevin to a hotel. But she's saying, yeah, she's just chilling with her girls for the night, blah, blah, blah. And then she literally just kept saying it. I think she was trying to clue me in. And I gave them the money to get the weed. Now, they told me it was only $100. They can get a deal because it's New Year. So I only was putting 20 in at this point. I got to keep 20 back. And I remember, like, this girl who's her friend, like, while talking to her, I'm waiting for her outside of the building. They went up in the building to get it. She dropped, I can't remember, it was a $5 or $10 bill. She just, like, randomly dropped it. And then it was just like, when I noticed that, I immediately picked it up and gave it back to her. And she's like, oh my God, no one else would do that but you. No one else would do that but you. And she was just talking, blah, 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 blah. And essentially pointing out how good of a person I was. Then they came back, they had the weed, and I was like, okay, pass me the weed. And as we're walking up, that girl's best friend was like, oh, do you have a bottle? Because I actually did bring my own bottle. I like Appleton. And so I had my own bottle of Appleton. She was asking me, oh, can I see it? I'm not going to drink it all. And I was just like, in my head, I was like, why the fuck we're going to a hotel. Why am I giving you the bottle? Blah, blah, blah. And it was kind of supposed to be a surprise that I was going. Like, I was not part of it until the end. I was kind of even up to the night before acting like I wasn't going. Then they, like, went inside to that girl's house, and they essentially took half of the half-o, and then they threw me half. So it's like, essentially like 60, I don't know, like half of a half-o I got. And so I didn't really lose money because I still ended up with more than $20 worth of weed, and that was my own money. And then I'm waiting out there, and I'm just like, wait, what's going on here? Like, why did you guys run inside? Why did you lock me out? I thought we were all chilling. May take a long time. Apparently, talking to that girl after is because they had to add something to what they made about me. So there was one page added to what I'm going to talk about me, which they actually did at the time. And I remember when I talked to her after, she kept saying, you weren't supposed to be there, blah, blah, blah. You weren't supposed to be there. And that's kind of why I felt bad and started talking to her again a few months later. I was a dumbass, as I said. But then they passed me this book, which essentially this book is just a whole thing mocking Kevin, talking about how he's a weirdo and he's crazy and all these things. Then they drew one page about me, which was kind of stupid and didn't really bother me that much, honestly. I guess it was just like on the moment they kind of did it. But it was just like, I remember letting Kevin know and telling him I'm going home to celebrate New Year's. If you want to meet me, you can come and meet me. And he had an extra, like, he had already, like, here's the scope of how bad this dude got burnt this night. He had given them the money for the hotel. Not realizing he booked a hotel for credit card, so he should have did it himself. Then they used the excuse, okay, we got to get a motel because blah, blah, blah. Then he bought an excessive amount of alcohol, a few cases of beer and a few bottles of alcohol. And then apparently he was giving this girl money regularly every time he went there, despite him acting like a crazy guy. I was always confused with him acting, doing all this crazy psycho shit. Why do they still talk to him? Because he was giving them money every time. So as I come meet me in my house, I gave him the book. I don't know if he might still have the book. I don't know, because I asked him to show it to me again at a later time, and he's like, he was saying something, I don't know whether he burns it or not, but fortunately, and this is one thing I always say, one of the most important and greatest things you'll always have in this world is your family, because when that did not work out for me, I was able to go home and celebrate New Year's with my family and have an amazing night. And New Year's, it may have been my worst New Year's ever, but it wasn't that bad compared. I know a lot of people, when they say worst New Year's ever, it's a lot worse than what happened to me, because they didn't have somewhere to go to be blah blah blah. But the Fat Cave has always been my New Year's destination, and as you guys know, it has been the site of the Festival of Fatness the last several years. It will be again this year, maybe. I don't know. Depends on who I'm dating and like if they're willing to do that. If they tell me I have to go somewhere, well, it depends on what it is. Let's not talk about the future. I don't want to give you guys spoilers. It's Peeps. Thank you for joining me on this edition of Throwback Stories from the Hood. Do you guys enjoy these episodes? Should I keep going though? I know you guys love them. I've been seeing the numbers. Thank you guys for showing that appreciation to my past, to real stuff. I know a lot of the stuff I do is kind of just in the moment type of stuff, and sometimes it's just like characters, but when I can come on here, talk to you guys about things that I actually lived and experienced, and you guys are watching it in crazy numbers and liking it, it's really cool. And I'm loving some of the comments I get in the groups. It's kind of making me feel hood again. Thank you guys. Be sure to follow me on everything Urban Franchise Entertainment. Be sure to follow my partner, Eat Now, Diet Later, on Instagram, and Vivi's Wabi Sabi Adventures on YouTube. Stay good, peeps, and keep it. And I meant business partner. Don't say things. Business partner. Stay good, peeps, and keep it.
Audio Jungle.